This is Jennifer Pepito with the Restoration Home Podcast. This is the show where we talk about cultivating a flourishing family culture through life-giving habits. Today on the show, I'm chatting with my daughter, Emelie Pepito. We're going to talk a little bit about Christmas school. So many of you listening are homeschool parents, or maybe your kids are in school. You're kind of wondering, like, how much can I get away with over the holidays, skipping school and doing fun Christmas school? And we're going to help you discern what is going to work best for your kids. Thanks for joining me today, Emelie.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm excited to chat with you, Emelie. We had some wild Christmases, okay? There were the normal years before we left for Mexico as missionaries. But then those missionary years were pretty intense because we had this, we started having babies in December. So I had a baby in December. And that year I planned to take the whole month off of Christmas. The preceding year, the year before I had that baby, we actually were in Mexico for Christmas. And so we kind of skipped Christmas altogether anyhow and gone on a mission trip to Mexico. Don't know if you remember that, with people who did not celebrate Christmas. I remember, I think I talked about this on the show, that I picked some bougainvillea flowers to decorate the tables for the dinner that night. And he's like, why are you decorating the tables? Like as if I was overstepping by decorating with bougainvillea flowers on Christmas, but they didn't celebrate Christmas. So that was one Christmas. Totally skipped Christmas altogether and went on a big mission trip. Definitely skipped school for at least, a couple weeks around that time. Didn't have a baby yet. The following year, we had a baby at Christmas, took the full month of December off. Our baby was born December 6th. And I had these little gift bags for each child. I wasn't really doing a lot for Christmas that year either because we were having a baby. But when the baby was born, I had a gift bag, almost like a stocking for every child. And that was super fun. And then every year after that was a little bit different. We were missionaries in Mexico. And one of the years we were down in Mexico by ourselves over Christmas. We just moved down on December 6th. Again, it was his second birthday. We moved to Mexico on his birthday. And then we were having Christmas all by ourselves, which felt a little intense. Like I was kind of sad about it. But that month we were definitely not doing a lot of school then either. You were 11 years old. And so we definitely took that month off school. And I didn't feel too bad about taking time off school in those early years. I'd read a book by Harvey and Laurie Bluedorn called Teaching the Trivium. I have a blog post on the Peaceful Press blog about 10 Things to Do Before Age 10, it's called. And it's based on their blog post or part of their book even, because it was such a good idea to just realize, oh, wow, if we skip Christmas, but we are living in a foreign country, we're going around and singing Spanish Christmas carols and inviting people to come to evangelistic service. We are navigating a new area. We're going on field trips to new museums. Like everything was so new that year. I didn't feel at all bad about skipping school that month. And then in later years, we started using the Peaceful Press guides. The Peaceful Press Christmas guide has all these fun phonics and counting activities and stories to read out loud to your children. So it's not like you're not doing school. You're just not doing the regular school. Instead, you're doing Christmas school. I'd love to have your input, Emelie, on did you miss out on any academics when we were doing Christmas school? How come you were still able to study for a Juris Doctorate, even though we were skipping school?
Yeah. Mexico that trip was so memorable. I remember, I think it was our first time down there as a family, and it was just such a wild experience. We were 4 hours south of the border. It was the cultural shock, I think. And it wasn't that much of a shock because you're quite young, but just so many new experiences. And the thing about it is that if you are giving your child, like in that case, we had new experience after new experience. We were exposed to different languages and different ideas, and we had to deal with crossing a border. And I remember walking to the local corner market with the missionary kids. So, I was probably 6 or 7, and we're all walking in a group to the local corner store, and I had a few pesos and I bought donuts. So I'm learning about different currencies. I'm learning about, I'd lived in Northern California. I'd never really been in desert, and this was oceanside desert. So there's geographical awareness. And the thing about book learning is that without experience, most of it never becomes real to a child. And so when you take time to do a month of Christmas school and focus on experiences and adventures, or hands-on activity or connection, you are allowing your child to learn in a much more multisensory way that sometimes gets missed when we dive into the book learning, which is also necessary, but not enough by itself. And so I'm really thankful for the times that we had to explore more and just enjoy the season. I think the other part of it was we had so many really beautiful traditions. And I know we talk about this a lot, how you need to have these anchor memories. And for me, because Christmas was always a fairly low stress time of year, because we put such a priority on not doing too much and only saying yes to what was really important and doing things that were meaningful and a gift to our family, it's always been a season that even in the most stressful times of my life, which have been, the last, 10 years of university with, getting the couple different, anyways, with that, it was so precious to walk into that season and be like, oh my gosh, this is a season where no matter how busy I am, there's an excuse and a reason to stop and create and to decorate and to bake and to do a lot of things that are really, really life-giving. And so when you take the time to pause from school to enjoy traditions and activities in that season, you're also giving your child something to hold on to when they go through busier and more stressful times later on in life.
Yeah, that's a really good reminder that it's not just about now. Like we're building memories now when we pause and make, snowmen out of cotton balls, or when we pause and have a little hot cocoa and story time, or make popsicle stick ornaments or salt door ornaments, or all the fun things that we do with hands-on learning. It's not that you're taking away from your child. You're actually giving them something. You're giving them these anchors and these creative moments and these sparks of joy that make learning so much more beautiful. But I think it's interesting to think too about what you're doing, because people do worry, oh, like if I take this time off of school, we're going to be missing out, for instance, the Peaceful Press has an Advent resource called All Creation Waits and Unearthing Wonder. So our resource is Unearthing Wonder, and we read a book called All Creation Waits. And the 25 stories in All Creation Waits are these beautifully written stories about animals. And then in Unearthing Wonder, we pair it with a Bible story and a Bible verse and some kind of thoughtful activity. There's nothing unschooly about that. Do you know what I mean? Like it can count for science. It can count for literature. It can count for composition because your children are coming up with their own thoughts about the story. It can count for art because they're making some kind of an ornament. So there's a lot of learning that happens with the Peaceful Press Advent Guide, Unearthing Wonder. Or take the Peaceful Press, the Christmas Guide Volume 1. There are activities like making lists or doing phonics activities. All of these are building important skills for your children. There's nothing like not worthy about these activities. And so I think it's just so important to start thinking about our learning and sort of recognizing, oh, wow, okay, I'm going to take a couple weeks off of our grammar curriculum, but I'm going to, in the meantime, be composing stories with my child, be narrating stories with my child. There's a lot of other kinds of learning that's going to be happening, even though we're maybe not doing the same schooling that we would normally be doing.
Definitely. And I think the thing about say, starting out on this idea of Christmas school where you take a break starts to tie learning to different activities or seasons. So rather than always wondering, oh, is now a good time to maybe explore some less workbook related types of learning, when you start to tie it to seasons of like, okay, a couple weeks in spring, we take a break and we plant a garden and we go do more nature exploration and we do more nature journaling, um, you, you start to have this rhythm where you're taking breaks, you're stepping back from book learning around times and seasons. And especially if you are a little more sort of type A, I guess, about the education, it can feel hard to make that break with your daily schedule, your daily routine of grammar and math and history and science. But when you start to pin it to these seasons, I think it gives you the freedom to do it, even if it doesn't come naturally to you.
Yeah, so such a good reminder. And even thinking about like math skills, if you took a break at Christmas and did one of the guides, you would be doing some sewing and measuring. You would be doing some counting activities, maybe some categorizing activities. There are a lot of math skills that also would be built over that season. A couple weeks of just a diversion. I think sometimes when we back off a little bit, you might be right now experiencing a little pushback, like you've been working hard on learning new skills over the fall homeschool season, and your kid might be hitting a wall a little bit or feeling a little tired and worn out. And so taking that sort of diversion almost where you do things differently, it gives your child a chance for those skills to sort of be cemented, the skills that they learned in math, and they can actually put them into applications. They're cutting out a pattern for sewing a stocking or measuring a pattern or, building some kind of a watercolor scene or jingle bell bracelets or all these little activities that are included in the Christmas guides. They're giving your child an opportunity to put what they've learned so far into practice and have it be cemented in there in a way that they'll actually be able to draw on it and use it later. Sometimes when we get, just sort of clicking along with filling in workbook pages, we're not really having a chance to apply it to anything. And then it's hard for that sort of learning to stick when there's been no application.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when you do a rest period or a reset period over Christmas, so you're not stopping the learning, but you're stepping back from what it looks like. And like you said, you're making practical applications. That rest period is often crucial, or that redirection period, to a child beginning to grasp a difficult subject or a concept that they were struggling with before that. And so often, when I have had the self control to step back from something that I can't figure out in life and go do something that is, it's hard, I'm looking for the right words, but essentially you're applying your hands and your mind to something, but it is in a really productive, wholesome way. And sometimes it just unlocks your brain and allows you to figure something out that you were stuck with. Figure out a math problem, figure out something in algebra, understand how to parse a sentence, understand the difference between an adjective and an adverb. And so often, when we don't change our method of learning, we create children who are just bottled up with frustration and self-disappointment because they're not able to grasp the concept, and just continuing to hold it in front of them is not giving them that space to redirect their brain, focus on something else, and then come back to it with a fresh mind that enables them to unlock what was puzzling them.
Yeah, that's a really good reminder, just that sort of redirecting in that way and giving yourself a chance to do things in a different way or even just do something different helps our minds work. Just like sleep, they say that a lot of learning is cemented actually during sleep, that the things that were learning during the day are somewhat processed in sleep. This is another way of giving your child a chance to even process what they learned through the fall semester but then learn something different over the month of December. That, I was even looking at just some of the homemade Christmas gifts that you could make through the resources. So in the Christmas Guide, Volume 1, there's a tutorial for bath salts and stockings and homemade hot cocoa mix and holiday soup mix. And there's similar ones in Christmas Guide Volume 2 and the Holiday Book Flood, where part of what your child could be learning over the holidays is learning a little bit of philanthropy, of doing something nice for a neighbor, in a time where there are people who are, maybe don't have quite as much this Christmas, that your family could drop off a gift package with some homemade hot cocoa mix and holiday soup mix, and maybe even a nice jar of bath salts for a mom who's been busy taking care of young kids all day, or maybe some elderberry syrup that your children made. Even doing some kind of a craft fair, participating in a craft fair where your child got to work on some of these projects and then go sell them at a holiday craft fair, can be such a great learning opportunity. Super good for entrepreneur skills and people skills, social skills. There's so many things that are learned when your child has these little sort of business opportunities. I know one of the things that we did one year was having an entrepreneur class that culminated in a Christmas fair. And everybody had a little booth at this sort of a market in our community where they were able to sell the things that they've been working on the whole year. And so taking opportunities like that to learn in a different way or learn something different, there's so many benefits to that. And I think it is easy to worry, oh, is my child going to fall behind? Are they going to miss out on something? But if you look at, institutional schools, a lot of them are learning on computers and learning things that are probably going to be obsolete. Even looking at my son's, like his high school history textbook, a lot of the information in there is not really relevant anymore. Like there's a lot of talk about labor unions. Well, actually, we labor unioned a lot of those jobs over to China. And so some of this stuff isn't even relevant now. And you'd be a lot better off reading a story like The Christmas Carol over the holidays, or I Saw Three Ships Come Sailing by Elizabeth Goudge, or George MacDonald Christmas Stories, reading some really beautiful, virtuous, and hopeful Christmas stories than, just hitting the books over December. And I know even with universities, like my children who are in community college classes in high school, even those classes end at least a couple weeks before Christmas. So just be mindful of what your children need. Maybe what they do really need is a little slower pace over the month of December, where you plan to really sink into a slower season where you're guarding your family's health, you're guarding your family's peace, and not worrying too much about what people think of what you're doing. And this is important for you to think about as well with your own activities, because it can be easy to look online and see all the fun things that people are doing, and maybe even overdo it with how many crafts you plan to do or how many outings you plan on having, and sort of be doing things maybe a little bit less for what's best for your kids and a little bit more for what you think is the romantic ideal. And so maybe even taking time to interview your children and ask them, hey, what's life giving to you at Christmas? That's one of the activities in the Unearthing Wonder Advent Guide, is just asking your family, like, what is life giving to you over the holidays? What is life draining to you? Emily, can you remember any of the things that were life draining to you over the holidays?
This is going to sound terrible, but having family around was very life draining. Not like extended periods, but I just I loved my immediate family, and I loved the times where we were just together, whether that was going on a winter evening walk together, whether that was just going up to Apple Hill and then walking around a lake together, or going and taking a walk in fall colors, or evenings where Dad would just read by the fire and we'd all draw and paint. But whatever it was in the holiday season, I loved the intimate circles and the sort of the stress and the fragmentation that occurred when there was a lot of extra people around. So it'd be adults with adults and kids with kids. And it just felt really lonely and disconnecting versus when it was just our immediate family and we were together and connecting. That was really special. I remember my cousin and I, we were quite little, and we were in bed together because it was at a holiday party at an aunt's house, And everyone was there, and we were laying in there, and we could hear the adults outside. And we were like, when we grow up, we're never going to make the kids go to bed early because this is supposed to be a family holiday. And we've been alone all day, and now we're in bed. And we were just so upset about it. And I think that is a key thing to remember with the holidays is that it sounds silly, but it really is for your children. Like, it's not necessarily so you can have all these parties for yourself, but what is leaving an imprint on your child's mind that they're going to carry with them, and it's going to give them a lot of hope and comfort through all of the storms and travails that hit them in their teenage and their adult years. And so bearing that in mind as you plan it, as you look at what you're doing across the holidays, and especially how you're prioritizing connection with your children. And I think that's another reason to take a step back and do something like the Unearthing Wonder or one of the Christmas guides, because if you are trying to keep up with all the expectations of the holidays and get out the textbooks every day and go through the routine of school, you're not going to have as much time or energy to connect with and enjoy your children. And as weird as it sounds, there is this emotional expectation on Christmas. I remember talking to my counselor about it at one point, and he said that most people he counseled had a significant drop in well-being and an increase in depression across the holiday season. And I don't know why, but there is this heightened expectation for connection, for just feeling settled and at home, and a sense of belonging and a sense of whimsy and delight that I think we move into that season craving. And when we heighten that stress, we do provide opportunities for our children down the road to kind of join that mass of adults who really struggle with the holiday season because of broken expectations and longing for connection and belonging that they maybe didn't get as much of when they were children, and now don't know how to get because they were so often pushed into performance rather than that attunement that we all crave.
Wow, that's I'm so glad you brought that up, because I also remember at Christmas, like, all the kids just having to play in the basement while the adults were playing games, and that, there's a balance here, because I believe that we need our extended family to it's a way of building culture when when we stay connected to extended family. It's a way of passing on values, and I love that my parents and my siblings are a part of our life. But I do remember when we transitioned to having Christmas Day by ourselves instead of, driving around to the different family members. It was such a relief just to have that one day a year where you knew you could be together and be resting together and just have such an enjoyable time connecting with our own children, that we'd worked so hard to create this special day for our kids. And then we actually got to have this special day with our kids. And it was so delightful. I just have so many happy memories with you, 7 children. But the flip side of that is someday, if I'm talking to moms with older kids, someday your kids are going to grow up and they're not always going to come home to you either. And that's going to be something to deal with. We had all the kids home last year, had a wonderful big slumber party. It was incredible. But this year is the in-laws' turn to have my kids. And so I'm like, gearing up for learning to be thankful and delighted with the people who are still home and not whining that some of them are not home this Christmas. Yeah, these are such good reminders. And for you moms listening, just taking some time maybe to interview your kids. This will come out, I think, mid-November. And so taking some time, just interview your kids, ask them what their favorite Christmases were, and even write some of this down yourself. Like, maybe make a timeline of what Christmases have been like for you, and maybe if there were some really hard ones where you felt sad. I can remember for myself, there was a really pivotal Christmas where I felt so unloved, and I needed to have Jesus come and comfort me in that memory, or I was staying stuck in it well into adulthood when it shouldn't have mattered anymore. I was still stuck as that little girl who had such a disappointing Christmas. And so if you're feeling like a little disappointed child, instead of being able to grow up and be an adult and be there for your own kids, maybe invite Jesus into some of those memories and ask him, hey, Jesus, can you come close and comfort me in this memory? What's true about this situation, instead of sort of dwelling in the past and staying stuck there. Invite Jesus to come and comfort you. Emelie, thanks so much for taking the time to chat about this. I treasure all the wonderful Christmases we've had together. Last year was so precious. We had little grandkids with us, and then we all went on a walk in the snow in the afternoon. It was a very beautiful, romantic day. We have our big dinner on Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Day, there's a lot of reading by the fire and chilling, and it was just so lovely. So thanks for all the Christmases I've gotten to spend with you, Emelie. It's been so
I've loved
delightful.
our Christmases. And just to clarify, I'm not saying I don't love my extended family an awful, awful lot. I just know there's been seasons when there has been more of a priority on, say, going out than connecting. But I love all my extended family, in case any of them are listening. I love hanging out with them.
We love you, aunties and uncles. Yeah, and I think it's just good for families to be thinking about how can we stay connected to the extended family, but still love our immediate family. And that might be developing some traditions around the holidays, maybe a Sunday after Christmas dinner where everyone gets together with the cousins and the aunts and uncles, or because for all of us, our kids are growing up, there's going to be maybe a day where they can't be there on Christmas Day, but thinking of the holiday season instead of just Christmas Day as the time to gather with family, and then being able to make some traditions that are just your family and some traditions with extended family are going to help you stay really connected to your own kids while also loving that extended family. So we thank you for listening. Subscribe and leave a review. It means a lot to us as a podcast when you subscribe or leave a review or share the episodes. It helps us encourage other families to build a flourishing family culture through simple life-giving habits. And Emelie, I'd love to know right now, what habit is transforming your life?
The habit that is transforming my life right now is choosing to use the Pause app every day and select slightly pleasant. I talked about this recently with another group, but it's just setting myself up every day with this habit of choosing to look at what is good and beautiful in my life is really changing my attitude and my ability to pursue some of the harder habits like working out or keeping my house clean or going to work.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Have a wonderful evening, Emelie. And listeners, I hope you're gearing up for a beautiful holiday season, such a peaceful, precious time with our families. You can find all of the Peaceful Press resources for the holidays. Right now, we have a print version of the holiday book flood. It's printed on beautiful cardstock and shrink wrapped, so it comes to your house really perfect, and you can cut out those Advent cards and string them up over the holidays or attach them to those picture books. We also have Unearthing Wonder as a hard copy on Amazon, and it's perfect bound, and then you can grab All Creation Waits as a audiobook or as a read aloud and enjoy that. And then for those who are doing a full Christmas school, we have Christmas Guide Volume 1 and Christmas Guide Volume 2. Those include counting skills and phonics and some basic literacy skills. They include fun motor skills and art. So those make a really great Christmas school option for your early elementary, preschool through early elementary students. So you can find all those resources at the link in profile and use code Restoration10 for 10% off our holiday resources.